Hey, everybody, we are recording and we are live, but we need to get all our people in the room. So Taj is going to continue to entertain y'all as I figure out how to get the link information to the rest of the people. Here we go.
I don't know how to entertain you guys.
Well, how's your internship going?
It's going well. It's almost ending. I'm in my last few months.
Wow.
I know, came around fast, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to tell you about a book that Jessica was telling me about yesterday. And so I think that can be the basis of our conversation today when they come on. But the name of the book, everybody who's out there in the world that she was talking about, which I was quite intrigued about, but the name of the book was like How Not to Die Alone.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I've been really intrigued by the book. It's on my list. She t- so my Amazon, my Audible, my Audible account is on the 19th. Like I buy new books on the 19th. It's on a little credit. Um, and so she, I had just bought two new books on the 19th. So she told me about the book on the 20th. And I was like, dang, I gotta wait a whole nother month before I can buy the book and get it and listen to it. But I'm very intrigued by it, by the science. And so I would love for us just to talk about that today. Hey, Jessica Renard and Mary Hannah and Jessica Addison will be here shortly as well. I'm sure as soon as she gets the link. But Jessica, I was telling her about the book, how I'm so intrigued about the book and how not to die alone and the concepts. And I would just love for us to have that conversation today because it's summertime and a lot of people want to be out, and about doing something in the summertime. I specifically love summer concerts and like, who do I want to go with? And what does that look like for me? And so let's say to the person who can't figure out how to get into a relationship. All right, that's the question for today. All right, what advice would you give them? And for the purposes of good morning, Jessica Addison, the question we're answering today are what are your three tips for the person who can't seem to find and get into a relationship? What are your three tips? Okay, who wants to start?
I have some things that come to mind
Yeah.
immediately. Try to see if three tips come out of it as I'm talking. My first thought is introspection on what you define as a relationship, and like
Mm,
your expectations of what you want out of a relationship, and even looking at like past relationships of like what happened there and kind of seeing like when those relationships ended or even like relationships growing up from your
mhm.
childhood, like whenever something happened or if they
Yeah.
ever ended, like, did it make you more jaded or did it make you introspective? Like, how did you take those relationships ending?
Really
So I
good.
think that would be like kind of my three like tips. It would be like looking at past relationships, looking at like your expectations for relationships now, and looking at like how you even want to define a relationship you want to be in.
Yeah, definitely so. All right, thank you. All right, who wants to go next? Your three tips.
I'll go.
Okay.
I kind of to piggyback off of what Mariana said, just to add my 2 cents, knowing who you are and where you are in life to see, am I able to receive the ideal relationship that I want? And a lot of times I think we talk with our clients about not having big outlandish goals.
Mm,
So we can know that we're able to obtain those things. So really knowing who we are and what we have time for.
mm,
Also, seeing have we kind of healed from baggage, not only from past relationships, but also childhood traumas that kind of attribute to our perspective of how we see ourselves, what we think relationships should be. Because a lot
mhm,
of times it doesn't matter what the relationship history is, nothing is more influential than those caregiver interactions we had early on as a child. And also being patient. Um, big blessings when it comes to finding someone that you truly connect with. It's going to be a journey because you don't want like a drive-through experience, then you're going to have a drive-through relationship. It's gonna come, it's gonna go. And sometimes your order might not be right. So you want to make sure you gotta take your time in that and
Yeah.
to know like once you find that person, if you believe it's your ideal person, just
Mhm.
know everything that you went through, it was for this reason, for this purpose.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Who's next? Tosh.
I'll go. Yeah. So many things have bounced around my head with that question.
Hmm.
I think the one I want to point out though is we're talking about relationships, and I'm sure like we're alluding to romantic relationships, but I would say examine all the relationships in your life. Examine your friendships, examine your relationships with your family members, and are they successful? Are they thriving? Are they, what would your closest friends say about your dating life? What would they say about why you haven't secured a partner? Because introspection is hard, self-reflection is hard. It's difficult to see yourself fully, especially if someone isn't telling you. So my second tip is go to therapy because
Mm.
we gonna tell you. We gonna tell you what's going on. Um, and then my last tip would be less about mental health and more about how you present. Do you smell good? Mm, are your fingernails dirty? Like, are your clothes wrinkled? Like, how are you presenting? Like, are you looking like someone who is open and available for a relationship? Or are you looking unattractive? And I'm not talking
Mhm.
about features. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about, do you take care of yourself? Because
Mhm.
essentially, what wrinkled clothes, dirty fingernails, you know, what's that stuff called? Dandruff showing all in your hair, like you ain't washed it. When you look like that, it presents like you don't love yourself. You don't love yourself enough to take care of yourself. So how could you love anybody else? And that immediately turns somebody off before they could even get to know you. So how are you presenting? How would your friends and family answer that question for you? And
Mhm.
go to therapy. That's my three.
All right, Jessica Renard, what's your three?
Sure. So part of this is also bouncing off of Taj's response just because it's fabulous. Um, Honestly, I would say that you don't necessarily have to do those things, but if you don't do those things, be aware that like energy attracts like. So, like, you're going to be attracting someone who doesn't care about your wrinkled clothes or dandruff, but may also present in a more
Casual.
yes, in a more casual manner. In somebody that, like, if I am showing up in a particular way, but I expect my partner to be giving 110%, that is most
Mhm.
likely not going to happen. So
Mhm.
understanding that. Some of my other things, and this is coming out of the book, I How to Not Die Alone. Get out of your own way. Like, oh my gosh,
Mm.
so many daters are putting obstacles in their own way, and largely to a certain extent it is because of the system that we're in. So like I
Mhm.
want to say that it's not necessarily your fault that you're getting in your own way, but you're paying attention to a lot of what dating apps say are important, or
Mhm.
what dating apps are measuring, which is not important. So height, income, race, like all of that is not
Yeah.
important. It's how that person makes you feel. Do
Mhm.
you feel safe? Do you feel cared for? Do you feel like this person would take you to the hospital at 2 in the morning? Like,
Mm.
those are the things that are going to be really important for a long-term relationship, not whether he makes $100,000. In addition to which, a lot of times when people have those requirements, one, you're trying to measure something that income doesn't actually measure. So
Mhm.
when someone makes $100,000, we're not analyzing what they're spending. We're not analyzing their debt ratio. We're not
Right.
analyzing a lot of patterns that is going to set you up for long-term success that maybe
Right.
somebody with 40,000 has nailed. They are putting their house
Mm.
paid off, their car is paid off, they're putting the
Mm-hmm.
majority of their money into investments, whatever, or they might have a trust fund. Really, income
Yeah.
is so subjective. And we don't know what's behind it. So when we start using that as a benchmark, one, we're limiting all of the people who don't meet that benchmark.
Mm-hmm.
And two, we're not actually measuring the things that we're supposed to be measuring.
Yeah. So what are we supposed to be measuring? I think I got to ask that question.
Yeah, so it's experience. You can't pick somebody out of a lineup saying, "Oh, this is going to be a good partner," because in the book she also talks about how she swiped left on her now husband because he looked like a dude bro, and she was like, not really interested in that. And she's like, I
Yeah.
wouldn't have put redheaded vegan engineer into the search engine to pop out a dating profile. It was
Mm-hmm.
because they had connected through work and he had invited her out. So you have to date. So any of this mentality of I can know what I want and I'll know when I no, you're wrong. Like
Mm-hmm.
just assume that you're wrong. Um
Mm-hmm.
and go out. Go out with
Yeah.
people that you're like, "Oh, I don't think that this would be my type of person." Go
Mhm.
out with them. And honestly, and then going back to another date, eight rules of love. It takes 3 dates, at least 3 dates to figure out whether or not this person is a partner. And I say that not in a if it's a terrible date and you don't ever want to breathe the same air as this person, that's one date.
Mm-hmm.
If they are nice and don't set off any red flags and are courteous to the waiter, it doesn't matter. Like, I just saw a really great thing on Facebook that was talking about, oh, I'm going to dump James because he's boring. And the person that they're talking to was like, "Oh, I love James." It's like, "Yeah, we just don't have any chemistry." And then they remind them of the past relationships. It's like, "Oh, wasn't this person a narcissist? Oh, yeah, he was really terrible, but we had great chemistry." And it was like, "Oh, and this other person, he was," and it was like, "Oh, yeah, it was really hot." And it was like, "Yeah, until he blew you off and then stopped responding to your text." He's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, yeah, that wasn't good." And it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes when we've had previous experiences, boring or safe or predictable feels like we don't have chemistry.
Mm. Oh, that's so good. That's
Is
so good.
can I say something so quick
Please
and
do.
quick?
Please do.
Um, Jessica, you made me think of this new like trend on social media and YouTube where it's the pop the balloon dating thing.
Yes, I
Y'all seen
saw
that?
that.
Okay, I haven't seen it. What is it?
Natalie. So just Google, pop the balloon dating. And basically, um, they'll take a line of single women or a line of single men and they give them a balloon. And then a person comes up and they have to, I'm explaining this very badly, but the host brings out one person and the people who have the balloon can pop it if they don't want to date that person. They keep the balloon inflated if they want to date that person. And
Okay.
so the host will take the dater, right, and go talk to the people who pop their balloon to find out why they popped their balloon. And Jessica just made me think about that because one, I think it's a terrible model for dating because it's dating off first glance. It's
Yeah.
dating off a very short interaction. But it's so entertaining. That's the problem.
It's
That's
so
the
Yes.
problem.
entertaining.
It's so
Yeah.
entertaining, but it's trash. It's
Mhm.
it's putting out bad information. It's putting out unrealistic expectations. Um, and so honestly, my tip would be to monitor, my fourth tip, monitor your social media use. Like, what are you consuming from the masses? Because there's so much dating information that's out there that's terrible,
Mhm.
misinformed, ill-informed, and just
Mhm.
wrong.
Mhm.
And just
Mhm.
wrong. And it can really like muddy up your perception of people
Yeah.
and it can drain your energy so you don't want to go to the third date. You don't want to
Yeah.
try somebody new because you're just so drained. So
Mhm.
yeah, monitor your social media use because that'll get you caught up and dying alone, honestly.
No, it will. Like, at one point in time, there was this popular guy in the ethos. I'm gonna say that he has since passed away, and I really believe that's because the universe was like, "We've got to get you out of here before you
Talking
mess up
about
the
Kevin Samuels.
people." I didn't want to say his name like that, but yeah. But the rhetoric in which people were saying after they listened to him was just so crazy and harmful and just terrible. And so I had a girlfriend and we were sitting at a restaurant, and this guy out of the blue just comes up and just starts telling us how we're not high value. And we're like, you approached us. And so like you okay. So you want to talk to engaging women. You want to talk with us and engage with us because you approached us. And yet you all of this rhetoric is keeping you from getting to know us, which apparently you wanted to do. And so it's just very, very interesting. So that's really, really, really good. And just as a therapist, my therapist's brain was just like, this is so interesting because you could have kept walking and yet you decided to come engage. And so I think that's going to be my tip, is to sit down and make sure you're clear. I know when I've gone on dating websites, I've read some profiles of men that I'm like, you don't like women. You
Yeah.
shouldn't be dating.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's a big one.
Whoa,
It's
this
like,
is
I'm not
a
doing this. I'm not doing that. If you're looking for this, swipe
wow.
left. It's like angry, 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 angry. Go sit
Yes,
on someone's couch at this point.
please. Yeah. So my tip number one is get clear. Like get clear. If there's any part of you that is skeptical, scared, doesn't like the opposite sex or the same sex or whoever you may be trying to date, just kind of get clear on that this is something you want and how you want them. Yes, Jessica.
Oh
So
no, I
I
was
just want to,
I'm
well,
sorry.
oh,
Bernard.
I was saying which
sorry.
just
Just because we called out some men on that, I think a lot of women
Yeah.
unconsciously present
Mhm.
in this way as well. Because if
Mm-hmm.
we start stacking, you need to be this, and you need to be this, and you can't expect this, and you can't expect this,
Right.
like there's a lot of time women thinking that they're putting standards on to the
Oh,
person they're hoping to date is a way of weeding out the
Mm-hmm.
people who don't meet that standard. But the thing is we're also viewing that as,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you don't seem like a very happy person, you feel
Mm-hmm.
like you've gone through a lot. So being aware of male or female
Yeah.
putting that into your dating profile. And also, just because Taj mentioned it and I wanted to comment on it real quick, dying alone is not the worst thing in the world. There are so many relationships that are worse to be in. So
No.
we are putting this in
what
a,
the
if you would
book.
like to be in a relationship, but like dying alone is not the end. And alone is so subjective when we talk about friends, family, children. There are a lot of
Mm-hmm.
things that can make our lives rich that have nothing to do with romantic relationships. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Oh.
I was just quoting the book, girl.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, let's see. My second tip would be dating as an active activity. And so please make sure you're being active in the active activity. And it has always been an active activity. It is only since I think Disney and the church that people started like in manifestation started thinking that they could just sit at home and meditate and a partner will show up in their life some type of way. But historically, there were matchmakers, there were um kind of community events where people would go specifically to look for a partner and try to match kids and family members and all of this. And so it has throughout history, it has been an active activity and it still is an active activity. Like you have to get out and put your best foot forward. So that would be my step number two. And then my step number three would be to do it with a friend or do it with somebody who can kind of encourage you and keep you accountable. And, hey, did you go out to this weekend, or what's the plan for next weekend? But just have somebody who can hold you accountable. And that can be your therapist or anybody, but somebody who is going to help you hold your feet to the fire, because it can get a little draining and it can get a little disappointing when you have your hopes up. So those are my three. Okay. If everybody had one thing, yes, but who? Go ahead, go, Mariana.
I was gonna say too, bouncing off of your second tip, like I think dating is really like, like building connections, like the way that you kind of network in your job. I think you also have to do that with people so that
Mm-hmm.
even then, like you meet people and maybe they're not the people you want to date, but they're like, hey, I have friends. Let me introduce you to my friends. And like
Mm-hmm.
networking in that way to just like, it's about the number of people that you meet.
That's good. That's really, really good. Okay. If you guys, to relate all of this to sex therapy, could say one thing to relate it to sex therapy, what would you say to relate it? Who wants to go first?
I can, because the get out of your own way applies in sex as well. Like, have those conversations, talk about the things that are going on, don't pretend that it just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Talk to your partner, like being more transparent about the things that are going on, it allows you to get out of your own way.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Who's next?
I'll
My,
go.
okay.
Oh, go. Or you can go ahead, Mary.
I was just gonna say my other thing would be like kind of examining your attractions. And it's like, are these attractions that really come from within, or are they attractions that
Mm,
culture has told you this is what's attractive? Even in terms of like what you place on yourself, like you say, I can't be attractive or I can't have good sex because of X, Y, and Z. When really like I can guarantee you almost anything that you fill in the blank with, that's false, like the hard body idea of like, I have to be young and fit to have great sex. And it's like, actually, research tells us that older people have the best sex of their lives and like fulfilling sex, it's about
mm,
knowing yourself and kind of examining like, what is culture
yeah.
telling me versus what I know within me to be true.
Oh, great. Okay. Jessica Addison.
I would say to match your expectations and goals with your willingness and your ability. Is your mind, is your body able to get out there? Do you look approachable? And that's not always, you could be well put together, but if you're standoffish or if you're in your phone, if you're not interactive with other people, a simple hi, how are you? Are you like, oh, why are you talking to me? Like you have to be approachable in any and every aspect, even if you have everything together, no one will know that you're available if you're not willing to get out there.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Okay. Tosh.
I would say be open to having a conversation about sex, and as opposed to simply being dismissive or quick to jump guns. I've heard from just people out in the dating world that like, okay, take a woman who um does not want to have sex before she's in a committed relationship. Great, cool. Um, but she's extremely dismissive to any man's flirting that can get like a little bit risque. And like the
Mm-hmm.
I understand her perspective, like I just want to nip it in the bud right then. But I'm like, it's such a harsh cutoff to when you could have set your boundary with him and then see how he responded. If he's respectful of it and understanding of it, and then
Mm-hmm.
changes his behavior, as opposed to just completely cutting him off because he made a off the cuff comment, right? He didn't
Mm-hmm.
know that that would offend you. How would he know unless you tell him?
Right.
So I would just say have your boundaries for sure,
Mm-hmm.
know whether or not, how far you want to go sexually with somebody, like kind of have that in your mind.
Yeah.
Um, but be open to having a conversation about it. Just
Yeah.
talk about it.
Yeah. Mine would, to wind us down, is be sexy for yourself. like, like look
Mhm.
in the mirror. are you sexy? Do you feel sexy? Um, and just embrace it and rock with that, and enjoy it. And there's a wonderful part of sexuality that's playful. And so play in the playfulness and just kind of go out and enjoy. Just enjoy, just enjoy. There's so many wonderful things to enjoy. And so even if you don't like feel like a person is like, okay, this is my one again. Taj, you said 3 days. Who said it takes 3 days? Jessica, it takes 3 days. And so enjoy those 3 days. Like just enjoy until you meet your person. Until you meet your person. Okay. Any last comments that people feel like the people should just know out there with dating? All right. Well, good luck. And remember, it's an active activity. So get active today. All right, ladies, y'all have a great day. Bye.
Bye.